Supratistham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamhayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishware Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from the Sri Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, the perfection of renunciation, text 13. Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Karanani Nibodhame
Karanani Nibodhame
Sankhye Kritante Proktani
Shankhe Kritante Proktani
Siddhaye Savakarmanam
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Karanani Nibodhame
Karanani Nibodhame
Sankhye Kritante Proktani
Shankhe Kritante Proktani
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Karanani Nibodhame
Karanani Nibodhame
Sankhye Kritante Proktani
Shankhe Kritante Proktani
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Karanani Nibodhame
Karanani Nibodhame
Sankhye Kritante Proktani
Shankhe Kritante Proktani
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Panchaitani Mahabaho Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nibodhame Karanani Nibodhame Sankhye Kritante Proktani Shankhe Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Karani Nibodhame
Karanani Nibodhame
Sankhe Kritante Proktani
Sankhe Kritante Proktani
Siddhaya Sarvakarmanam
Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam
Panchaitani Mahabaho
Panchetaनि
Chaitani
Mahabaho.
Mahabaho.
कारणानि निबोध मे
Karanani Nibodha
Nibodh
me.
me.
सांख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानाम्
Sankhye Kritante Proktani.
दये सर्वकरुणाम्
Siddhaye Sarva Karmanam.
Pancha,
Pancha.
5.
5.
Etani,
Etani.
these.
These.
Mahabaho,
Mahabaho.
the mighty armed one.
Almighty Armed One.
Karanani,
Karanani.
causes.
Causes.
Niboda,
Nibodha.
just understand.
Just understand.
May,
Me.
from me.
From me.
Sankhye,
Sankhye.
in the Vedanta.
In the Vedanta.
Vita ante,
Kritante.
in the conclusion.
In the conclusion.
Proktani,
Proktani.
said.
Said.
Siddhaye,
Siddhaye.
for the perfection.
For the perfection.
Sarva,
Sarva.
all.
Of all.
Kamanam,
Karmanam.
activities.
Activities.
Almighty armed Arjun, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Purport. A question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reaction of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that there are 5 causes for all activities, and for success in all activities, one should consider these 5 causes. Sankhya means the stock of knowledge, and Vedanta is the final stock of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Shankara accepts Vedanta Sutra as such. Therefore, such authority should be consulted. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nevase Sasunyavadi Pastachati Satarane. Almighty armed Arjun, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. So Krishna is speaking to Arjun, and of course from the 2nd chapter on, Arjun accepted Krishna as his teacher or guru, instructing him, and now Krishna is saying to learn this from him. So this must be important for him to tell him that he wants him to learn it from him. And this purport, in the beginning of the purport, says a question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? So we learned in the 3rd chapter, 9th verse, 3rd chapter, I got pretty close there. Yagnatat kamanonyatra lokayam karma bandhana taratam kama kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So in the third chapter, this question is answers that Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport. But Prabhupada does say a question may be raised. So those people who weren't, I guess, most people who just hear the Bhagavad Gita are not going to remember all these things. It's only because of studying for so long that people can remember these things. But we can remember from the third chapter that if you're working for Krishna, there is no reaction. So this question he's saying may be raised at this time. How's the person in Krishna consciousness? How does he not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? And here the Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. So previously he's shown by his words himself. Now he's backing up his statement by Vedanta philosophy. He's teaching Vedanta philosophy, although so far we haven't had any quotes from Vedanta philosophy, they're quotes from Bhagavad Gita, but I don't know if that is considered Vedanta. Of course, Veda means knowledge. It's certainly knowledge, but there are certain Vedas. There are certain people who don't follow certain things like the Mahabharata and certain parts of what we would consider supplement of the Vedas. They don't accept. And Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. So there are many people who don't accept even Bhagavad Gita, although Bhagavad Gita is a perfect book for everyone to become God conscious. It's spoken by God himself, Krishna, and it's spoken to a devotee of Krishna, someone who is temporarily put into illusion so that he can have these doubts and questions so that Krishna can answer them. The ultimate control is invested in the supersoul. So without the supersoul or without the sanction of God, nothing can happen. Prabhupada has quoted how not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of God. So if a blade of grass can't even move, we can't move. We can't do anything. It's the unseen hand of God that we are able to move this body at all, that we have this body, that this body can function. It's simply a gift by Krishna for us. You might say it's a gift. You might say it's also a punishment. It's for the rebellious souls to get a material body. But the body does have senses, and you can use these senses to perform activities. According to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action, which we will read the next verse. Now learn of these from me. So Arjuna was a devotee. And he hears from his Guru, the Supreme Lord, now learn of these from me. So he might not really like to learn a whole bunch of stuff, but if you're instructed by your Guru to learn this, then you take it seriously and you try to learn it. It's like the South Indian Brahmin who was trying to read Bhagavad Gita, even though he didn't know how to read, he was illiterate. But his Guru had instructed him to read, so he's trying to read. He doesn't know how to read, but he's making that effort because his Guru told him. And then he was crying. Lord Chaitanya saw him crying and asked him, why is he crying? And he said, well, my Guru Maharaj had instructed me to read Bhagavad Gita every day, and I'm illiterate. So then he asked, so why are you crying? And he said, because when I think about Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, the originator of everything, material and spiritual, and he takes the position of a chariot driver for his devotee, Arjuna, that he takes this subordinate position to his devotee, to please his devotee, that brings tears to my eyes. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you are the real Noah of Bhagavad Gita. So this instruction that Krishna has given Arjuna, he's also giving us. So even though we may not be able to learn these things, we have to make an effort to learn them. We have to try to learn them. We have to try to hear from the authorities. And Prabhupada said, scrutinizingly study these books. So we make that effort because Krishna is saying it, Prabhupada is saying it. We heard first from Prabhupada, but he's just saying what Krishna is saying. So now we have to try to learn this. So I'm going to read the next verse, but before I do, does anyone have any questions on this verse or purport? I'll take that as a no. Does anyone have any comments on it? Okay. Is anyone still there?
I was just going to say, if I was paying attention, I would have had a comment or a question. But I was a bit distracted. I'm sorry.
That's fine. But Krishna says, now learn of these from me. So you have to really try to learn it. I'm trying to learn it too. So we're reading now the next verse. This is now he's going to tell you what these 5 things are. So you can repeat the Sanskrit, but we're not going to have everyone chant it again. Oh, good, it's up there. It's bigger on the screen than it is in my book. Adhistanam tata karta.
Adhishtanam
Takarta.
Karanam cha pratak vidam.
Karanam cha prathagvadham.
Vividascha pratak chesta.
Vividhasya prathak chesta.
Daivam chaivatra panchamam.
Daivam chaivatra panchamam.
The place of action, the body. I'm hearing an echo of me.
And you sound very cool.
What? What?
It sounded very cool, like a movie effect.
Oh, okay, then I'll keep doing it. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. So the place of action, which is the body, the material body we have, the performer, which is the soul, he's the one doing it. The various senses, we have 5, we have different senses for acquiring knowledge and etc. The many different kinds of endeavor. Endeavor is actions, right? It's the different kinds of actions we do. And ultimately, the super soul. That's the main thing. Without the super soul, nothing can happen. These are the 5 factors of action. Now we'll read the purport. The word adhisthanam refers to the body. The soul within the body is acting to bring about the results of activity and is therefore known as karta, the doer. So far we have the body, and the soul within the body is the doer. He's actually doing it. The body is just like a machine. When you're driving your car, it's not the car that's driving, it's the person inside the car that's driving it. When the person shuts the car down properly, it doesn't go anywhere. If you keep it in drive and get out, it's going to keep moving. But it's all because of the driver himself, the doer. So this body is just like a machine, and we are the driver of this machine. That the soul is the knower and the doer is stated in the Shruti. Eshahi drasta shrasta. That's from Prashna Upanishad 4:9. So now the soul's the knower and the doer. We know and we do, the soul. And now it's going back to, according to Vedanta, this is, the soul is knower, doer, stated in the Shruti. So it's given some places. It is also confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra by the verses Gyo Ta Eva 2:3:18 and Karta Shastra Tavat Vat 2:3:33. The instruments of action are the senses. And by the senses, the soul acts in various ways. So here he's saying these things, Prabhupada in the purport, and is backing them up by Vedanta. For each, I mean, we don't really have to back it up as Vedanta for the devotees, because devotees, anything Krishna says, we accept. What Krishna says in Vedanta and here, and I guess at that time with Arjuna, everybody knew that this is all in Vedanta. But now, because people don't know as much as they did 5,000 years ago, Prabhupada is pointing out where you can find some of these things in Vedanta. But we accept Prabhupada, we accept Krishna, we accept Bhagavad Gita as it is. So the instruments of action are the senses, and by the senses, the soul acts in various ways. For each and every action, there is a different endeavor or activity. But all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. So it's not the will of the Supersoul in the sense that it's not his will that we act in this way, but he wills it or he sanctions it if we want to do something. He does have his will would be like thy will be done in the Christian. There's in a prayer, Our Father prayer, it says thy will be done. So what thy will is, what God's will is, will be done ultimately. But all activities, but he's like giving us some free will also as to how we choose to act. And he's letting us act in that way. But all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. So you have your friend telling you, he's also telling us what to do, but we're not listening to him. What a friend. Imagine having a friend that tells you pretty much the same thing all the time, and every single time we don't listen to him. But he stays with us and he still tries to help us continually, life after life. Now he's our best friend. We don't have a better friend than that. Another friend would just give up on us. Oh, forget it. It's useless. Useless waste of time. But he keeps trying to help us. the Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the super soul situated within the heart is naturally not bound by any activity. So if we're acting for Krishna by listening to what Krishna wants from within the heart, and even if we can't hear what Krishna wants in our heart, the spiritual master, the guru, the acharya, Srila Prabhupada, is telling us what Krishna in our heart is telling us. So there's the guru is the external representative of the Lord in the heart of Super Soul. And he's telling you the same thing that Super Soul is telling you, but you can't hear Super Soul because you're not pure. When I say you, this means all of us who are not pure. One time I remember a conversation with Srila Prabhupada where they were talking about if Prabhupada, when Prabhupada leaves, what will we, at that time, will we, how to know what to do? Do we just then, we listen to just Super Soul in our heart? And Prabhupada said, if you are pure. So you can't listen to Super Soul in your heart if you're not pure. Although even in the impure state, sometimes we can hear Super Soul in our heart. We can listen when we're very contemplating, meditating, praying. When we're very serious about something, Krishna can reveal things to us. He certainly can, even in our conditioned state. But when we're pure, we can hear from him every moment. So we have to try to become pure. Then we have no question of what to do and what not to do. We know everything we should do, even materially, everything. But materially, when I mean materially, I mean externally. Because if you're acting, following the directions of Super Soul in the heart, it's not material. But for instance, if you're going to make some decision for some external decision for the temple, the building, business, mortgage, something for where Krishna, the whole thing is for Krishna, then he will tell us what we should do. We would know without a doubt what we should do. But because we're not pure, sometimes we have to pray a real lot if some big decision is coming up. And the main decisions we should be praying for is decisions for what's the best thing for my Krishna consciousness, not what's the best thing for my economic development. We shouldn't bother Krishna with those things. But we could, even if those things, if that's where we're at, because then it will develop our faith stronger. But that's not really very advanced devotee. A more advanced devotee is not praying to Krishna for economic development unless he's using that money for Krishna. It's like I was mentioning to someone the other day about what Srila Prabhupada had said to Gopal Krishna Maharaj, that Prabhupada told him, so you recently got a raise? And he didn't mention to Prabhupada he got a raise. And he said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, you should give that money to Bali Madan, because Bali Madan was the temple president in New York at the time. And Gopal Krishna, he wasn't a Maharaj at the time, but Gopal Krishna said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. So if you're giving that money to Krishna and he got a raise, it's so nice you get a raise. And then you got to give it to Krishna. But that's why Gopal Krishna is a Maharaj now and is a very pure devotee, because he did whatever Prabhupada wanted. And that's the secret of success. So in those actions, Sometimes we're not sure what we should do, but if we're doing it, the result is going to be for Krishna, and Krishna, we can pray to Krishna sincerely and he'll help us, usually. And if he doesn't, sometimes you may not get an answer, but at the same time, then the answer is that you have to make the decision or consult with some other devotees. The Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the super soul situated within the heart is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. You're in complete Krishna consciousness. You're doing everything for Krishna. So you're not responsible. Krishna says that he'll take care of us. There'll be any sinful reactions. Don't worry about it. Don't fear. Don't hesitate. Just do it for me. I'll take care of everything. So we have to have faith. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the supreme will, the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead. I'll read the translation again. The place of action, the body, the performer, the soul, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. So all of these have to be there in order for there to be action. And Krishna is telling Arjuna to learn this. Learn this from him. Don't learn it from somebody else. You may be telling you something else. Learn it from me. So any questions or comments?
I have a question, but I think you already answered it. So, how do you know whenever you're doing something and that it is what Krishna is telling you to do?
Well, first of all, if you're doing something for Krishna, then sometimes it doesn't matter. In other words, we were discussing yesterday, should we distribute Bhagavad Gita or should we distribute Krishna books? That's a decision. How do I know what Krishna wants? It doesn't matter. Krishna wants both of them distributed, so it doesn't matter. So it depends on what it is. Generally, if it's something for your material life, I don't know. It's not that important. I mean, it may seem very important now, but according to millions of lives that we've had, it's really not that big of a decision. But the decision is to surrender to Krishna. That's the important decision, has to be made. Then once we're surrendering to Krishna, we want to do the right thing. Just like if we're going to purchase something for Krishna with Krishna's money, then we want to make sure we're not going to get cheated. We're going to try to get the best deal we can get. So in something like that, we have to make some effort. Ultimately, if you're doing it for Krishna, no matter what you decide, whether it's Bhagavad Gita or Krishna book, whether you buy this thing or that thing, if you really, really want to use it for Krishna, and that's the whole purpose, then you get the same spiritual result. So, I mean, I can just tell you practically, when a big decision comes up, you consult the devotees, find out what they think, but then ultimately you have to make the decision, and I basically just pray a lot for if it's some big decision. Most things are not big decisions. So we just try to do something. I remember praying once. I was in the courtroom, and because I was speeding, and I was there saying I wasn't I wasn't really speeding, or I wasn't going that fast. I don't remember what I was trying to say. I was speeding, but it wasn't really fast. And it wasn't on a highway, it was just down the street, just going down the street here. And so I got a ticket and I really didn't think I should get it. So I went to court and the guy, I had to talk to somebody before I get in front of the judge. And he said, what we can do for you, instead of saying speeding, we'll change it to going too fast, going 1 mile over the speed limit, something like that. He said 1 mile over the speed limit. And then there would be a fine. And I still didn't think I should even get that, but I wasn't sure. So I said to him, can I think about it? And it was actually on Balaram's appearance day one year, this happened. So he said, yeah, you can think about it. So I went in the courtroom and I'm just praying, what should I do? Krishna, Balaram, what should I do? What should I do? And then my name is called and I have to go back in there and see that guy again before I go to the front of the judge. And he asked me if I thought about it. I said, yeah, I've been praying. And he said, and what did the good Lord say? And I said, he didn't say anything. and then he said, well, I really think you should do this, that thing, say 1 mile over the speed limit. And I said, well, there's a Bengali saying that if you're not sure, don't do it. And he said, we have a saying here, don't listen to Bengali sayings. So then I said, well, I said, I'm not, because I also wore a kurta, I had yogi pants on. So I was dressed as a devotee somewhat, So then I said, no, I can't do it. And he said, well, today is your lucky day. You can go. They're not giving me the ticket or anything. And then he said, I said, oh, thank you. He said, can you please say a prayer for me that I get a girlfriend? I said I would. And then I said, Krishna, if a girlfriend would help him become more Krishna conscious, then please give him a girlfriend. But I think with him, that was really nice when he asked, and what did the good Lord say? Like expecting me to say, well, he said this or he said that. And I said, he didn't say anything. And then he liked that. And then he let me go. So that was also Krishna's arrangement. To not
He
say
knew that you weren't a fake devotee, right? When you said he didn't say anything.
right. Like I'm so pure.
Yeah, like, some of those sahajiyas, who say the Galad said this to me.
But what I'm saying is, even if he doesn't say anything, that's also could be the right thing.
Obviously it was.
In that case, it was. But
So Krishna was testing your free will, Prabhuji, whether you are taking right decision yourself or not. That way I can say.
I don't understand that. I don't understand it.
No, you said God did not say anything. So I can say that way Krishna was not answering. It means like he was giving you free will to decide your own whether you should take a right decision or wrong decision, being in that situation.
I don't think it mattered too much to him if I got a fine or not.
Yeah.
And it went on my record that I was speeding. I don't think it mattered too much. But it was nice that no answer was the right answer. And
You were bothering him with petty stuff, right?
Yeah, I know, but the Bengali saying, I like that. Well, we have a saying here, don't listen to Bengali saying.
Obviously, he was a pretty humorous judge.
No, this wasn't a judge. This was the guy, you deal with him so you don't have to deal with the judge. He tries to without, the minor things,
Mm.
rather than going to the judge and wasting the judge's time. But so he
Yeah,
can
he must
act
have.
like a judge for small things.
Mm.
But anyway, so sometimes he answers you, sometimes he may not. But whatever, you have to make a decision. Like he said, we have our free will. He was leaving it up to me. And I didn't know. I really didn't know. But then I remembered Prabhupada saying, if Bengali saying, if you're not sure, don't do it. So I wasn't going to
But
do it.
sometimes you do feel that God didn't answer your prayers, but obviously you may not know what God has in mind, with whatever he gives you, whatever situation he gives you or circumstance he gives you.
I mean, I kind of have experiences where I know he's answered my prayers and I know what to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure everyone has,
Yeah.
in some circumstances.
And sometimes you don't. So you have to decide. In either case, you have to decide. Okay, any other questions?
No, just a comment, Pyari Prabhu. Like at least in my life, I have seen that there was always a design which I did not understand in that point of time.
Right.
Right. That's a good point.
And some people might not be had such extreme experiences like us, but like my plan was never to live in US. I was like, all my failures and all my successes put me in a place where my son had a brain hemorrhage. It was completely unplanned. I had unpacked from US and went back to India, and then I had come back for a couple of months. So I've seen that some of the things which actually thought that didn't go well, and later it was a purely like a perfect design of, you can't even plan it. So
Right. We have, there's a lot of instances like that and story. I mean, even I know in the Bible there is something like that too, where I really don't remember it. This is from like 50 years ago when I watched this religious movie, so I'm not too sure of it. But it was basically something to do with Moses rejecting God because this girl or something, a woman who died, but she didn't really die. It just like kind of went unconscious, and he thought she died. And anyway, I don't know the whole story, but in the movie, it made it like that. How you just have to have faith in God. Of course, he didn't have faith in God at the time, but then he got it when he found out she was still alive. Anyway, I don't even know if that story is true, but it was in a movie. And it was literally over 50 years ago. Definitely over 50 years ago. So, I'm lucky I can remember what I did today. But that is very, very true. We have to see, that's why we have to see everything is coming from God. Everything is Krishna's mercy. There's that story from that Prabhupada gave us about this king who had a servant, and the servant would tell the king everything, whatever happened to him, it's Krishna's mercy. And when he cut off a finger in some hunting accident or something, and when the servant found out, they were very close, the king and the servant. The servant said, when he cut off his finger, the servant said, "Oh, it's Krishna's mercy." And he really didn't like hearing that, it's Krishna's mercy, cutting off my finger. So he had him put in jail. And then later they went on another hunting excursion. And when they were out hunting, these worshippers of goddess Kali, they captured him, the king, and was going to offer him in a sacrifice. And they had him all tied down and they're ready to kill him. And then they notice his pinky is missing and they can't offer him because he's not whole. So then they let him go. And then he goes back and he lets this, I forget his name, but somebody can say it later after I finish. But he goes down to the jail and he lets this out, his servant out, and and he tells him, "You were right. It was Krishna's mercy that I got my finger cut off. Is because if I didn't, they would have sacrificed me. I would have been dead." He said, "But how is it Krishna's mercy that you were put in jail?" He said, "Because if you didn't put me in jail, I would have went with you hunting, and then they would have sacrificed me instead. So it's Krishna's mercy that I was in jail." So, but I mean, those are positive ways of things happening where you can see it's really Krishna's mercy. But everything is Krishna's mercy. Everything that happens to a devotee, the devotee should see Krishna is doing this to me for some reason to help me become more Krishna conscious. That's the ultimate reason for everything that happens to us. And we should see it in that light. And we should see, how can I benefit from this? How should I react to this so that I make the most spiritual benefit? And we should see every situation like that. Not just see it in other people's lives that it's Krishna's mercy, but in our life, mainly in our life, we see it as Krishna's mercy. You know, Krishna is doing this to me. Nothing can happen to me unless Krishna allows it to happen. So why is he allowing it to happen? It's not because he doesn't like us. Why is he letting me suffer? He doesn't like me. No, he likes us. He loves us. Loves us more than we can imagine. Just like I mentioned, he stays with us everywhere, even though we don't listen to him. He gives us instructions all the time, and we don't listen to it most of the time. Even the people who don't listen to it any of the time, he still stays with them. He's everyone's best friend. So if he does something to us or something happens to us, somehow it's his mercy, and it can help us, and it should help us. And we have to see how it can benefit us spiritually. You know, whether we have to learn detachment or whatever it is we have to learn. Or become more serious about Krishna consciousness, whatever. But we have to see everything that happens. And sometimes, like Sachin said, at the time you don't see it, but then later on you see it. So that's good. Thank you, Sachin.
Prabhu, I think that's the hard part, right? As you said, that completely surrender and really believe in it, right? All the time, every time, whether you are going through ups and downs or something which is not happening according to your wish or design.
Right, and everyone should know and that there will be ups and downs. There's no just, that's the spiritual world where there's no downs. But in the material world, there are ups and downs, and we have to learn to surrender to Krishna in both, whether things are good or things are not good. Whatever it is, we have to surrender to Krishna. And most of my experience is when something bad happens, if we take advantage and surrender to Krishna, then it gets minimized. It's not as bad as we expected. So many things happen, but ultimately you get back up. It's like a roller coaster, this material world. You know, there's some religions just promise everything's going to be wonderful. It's not any wonderful for anybody. There's always suffering. There's always problems, no matter who you are in this material world. How rich you are, how poor you are, whatever abilities you have, whatever knowledge you have, you know, material knowledge, it doesn't help. You're going to still have to suffer. Abrahma bhuvanaloka punavartino juna mamupetya takanteya punajanmana vijate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all the places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. So Krishna certifies the material world as a miserable place. Even if things, for some people, they have really good karma and they don't suffer as much. But then what happens at the end of this life? You know, ignorance is bliss. They feel really good. Everything is nice. And then in the next life, they have to suffer because they didn't do anything spiritual in this life, haven't made spiritual progress. Or if they make spiritual progress, then they can continue and they act properly. Then in the next life, if they don't go back to Godhead, they still have a halfway decent life, but there's still some suffering. Everyone has to suffer. And when I say they have to suffer, they don't really have to suffer. They have a choice how to accept that suffering. In other words, it may be a suffering condition, but it doesn't affect you. Just like Srila Prabhupada went through so many sufferings, but it's not like he was really suffering. You know, he's cold. He gets cold, but he still tolerates. He tolerates the cold. He tolerated it. Tolerate it without being disturbed. That's what Krishna says. So the people who are really suffering, they don't tolerate it and they are disturbed. So if you tolerate it without being disturbed, in other words, you're going to get your bad karma, but you have a choice how to react to that karma. You can tolerate it and go on with your spiritual activities and your material activities, or you can not tolerate it and suffer like anything, getting your karma. But your karma gets burnt away in either case. So if you can learn how to tolerate it, it's so much easier. You have a choice of how to react to the bad karma that you get. It's like you have a choice to how to react to the good karma that you get. We have that choice. So we don't have to suffer. Even though it may be something bad may happen to us, we don't have to react to it and suffer so much. We can tolerate it. Seeing it's coming from Krishna, it's there and it will be gone. All the misery in the material world has a beginning and an end. All the happiness has a beginning and an end. You know, there's a saying, time heals all wounds. But for a devotee, he has to see Krishna in everything. He has to practice this. And Krishna doesn't give a test that's too hard that you cannot pass. You always have that choice. You always have the choice whether you want to, how to react to anything in this world. It's not like there's not bad things that will happen, but you have the choice of how to react to those bad things. And you can react negatively or react positively by taking shelter of Krishna. And then you don't suffer so much from these things. Otherwise, you suffer a great deal.
Even Christians have that attitude. I mean, I had a Catholic friend when I was young, I think I was maybe 29 or so at the time. And I was complaining a lot about my life and, you know, at work, at home, everything. And then she finally said to me one time, she said, "Gita, if you can't change your life, change your attitude," she said to me. And I thought that was a very good advice. You know,
or change the person you're complaining to.
What changed the person I was complaining to?
If you can't change your life, you can't change your attitude, then change the person who you're complaining to.
No, she said, if you can't change your life, change your attitude is what she said. You know?
I know. I'm joking. That was a joke.
Then the same person, I think she had received a calendar of all, in all religions, like of paradise, you know, in all different religions. And I think one of the pictures in the calendars was of Goloka Vrindavan, of Krishna, you know. And she asked me, she said, like, you know, who is this? I said, it's Krishna. And then she said, why is God blue? She asked me. You know? I didn't quite know how to give her that. But I said, well, if God wants to be blue, he can be blue. And she liked the answer. She said, yeah, why not? She said, if he wants to be blue, he can be blue.
Right. Yeah, the Krishna conscious understanding of the afterlife makes more sense than anything else. There's no other religion. There's nothing that has an afterlife that makes real sense. You know, heaven, you just go and enjoy like anything. How, and for eternity, you get tired of it after a while. With Krishna, it's so nice because it's like some distress that Krishna is not happy. We have to do something, you know. It's perfect. It's a perfect understanding, and the perfect eternity is to be with Krishna, or even on the Vaikuntha planet with Narayan, where trying to please him is the best thing that gives you most pleasure. Whereas all the others, it's how to enjoying your senses. That's everywhere else. I mean, I don't know. I know the Catholics, I mean, the Christians, you know, go to heaven. The idea of heaven, from what I understood, is just wonderful sense gratification, like the heavenly planets. You know, but they're talking about the spiritual world like that. I never heard anything of God in heaven. Never heard that. It's just, you know, you get a big palace, you get a big house, everything is beautiful all the time, everything is wonderful. You just enjoy like anything, because you worked hard in this one lifetime. Now you can enjoy for eternity, enjoy sense gratification. And I think that the Muslims, at least the ones who blow themselves up, they get so many virgins. I don't know what the virgins did to get that.
So,
Anyway,
Prabhuji, one question.
yes.
I know God has gave us free will, but still He has control or all the wills, or like in this last purport we are reading. So still all the wills He can control, and so why does He does not control anything which is a wrong will by someone, and why He has created world, something called material, and where people has to suffer, when He has created this entire cosmos?
You wait to the last minute to ask this question, and it's two questions. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, you have free will. He gives you free will.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question of love unless you have a choice. You know, he doesn't force us to love him. You can't force somebody to love you. I mean, there's an old movie. This is also probably 55 years ago, a movie, The Collector. And this guy kidnaps some woman. He puts the ether on her face, puts her to sleep, brings her to his house in the middle of nowhere, ties her up, takes care of her nicely, is so kind to her, and he just wants her to love him. It sounds so ludicrous because the guy is a nut, you know, but so then she has to pretend she loves him, and then anyway, I don't have to tell you the whole plot, but the basic point is you can't force someone to love you. You have to have free will. And he gives us free will. Now, why does he let us do bad things? Because that's what we want. And he lets us do it. And then if we do it, we have to suffer the reaction. Just like Prabhupada gives the example of a child who wants to touch fire. You say, no, don't touch it. You'll get burned. But I want to touch it. Let me touch it. No, you're going to get burnt. Your hand's going to get burnt. It's going to be painful. Don't be a fool. Don't touch it. I really want to touch it. Let me just touch it. Okay, touch it. So then they touch it and they get burned. You know, so sometimes that's the only way we can learn. After that, he's not going to touch fire anymore. So for the fools that we are, we have to suffer. Okay, you want to steal. You shouldn't steal. You want to steal. Okay, steal. Then you steal, and then there's reaction. So now why did he make the material world? Because we decided we wanted to be the enjoyers ourselves. We didn't want to worship Krishna. We wanted to turn away from Krishna. So in the spiritual world, Krishna is the center. So he had to create a prison house. This is a prison house. Just like in society, why do we create prison houses? Why do we create prisons? Because there are people who don't want to follow the rules. We have to have some place for them, civilized civilization. You don't kill them, you put them somewhere. So you put them in a prison. So this is a prison. We are all in prison. There's sometimes first-class prisoners, second-class prisoners, third-class prisoners, but they're all prisoners. And we're here because he's so kind. Bhakti Siddhanta said that if you don't want to, surrender to Krishna, if you want to just try to be the Lord yourself, if you don't want to live in that spiritual world with him, then he should simply make you null and void. But he's so kind that he's always giving us a chance. So I think that was your two questions. I have my quick answers.
Yeah, but that's explained nicely. Thank you, Prabhuji. In 2 minutes, you explained it. Thank you. Yeah, I understand.
Okay, but anyway, that's it. So you can get out of here by good behavior, out of this prison. Okay, so
I think I'll ask you next time, what exactly caused that prison to be created if everything was so perfect in the background?
It's free will. That's what free will is. We always have free will. We fell down from that perfect place. We wanted to see something. It's very difficult to understand with our limited, tiny brains. But for myself, I can understand that I was stupid enough to do something to wind up in this place. I mean, why do we still do stupid things? We still don't surrender. Why? We know we shouldn't do this, but we do it. So I don't doubt at all that I was one of those people who decided to, try to be a little Krishna myself, just try to be the center. I don't know what I wanted, but I'm sure I turned away and try to enjoy somehow separate. And it's just instantaneous, if you ever think like that. But it does say in Bhagavad Gita that once you go back again, you'll never come back again to this material world. So
yeah, that's the part I was trying to get to. So I understand that we must have done something. I must have done something to turn away and all, right? But what is the guarantee that when I go back again, and that wouldn't happen, right? Because
it says you'll never come back again. So the guarantee is that you made this mistake somehow or other. You're always going to remember, somewhere in the back of your mind when it's, I don't know, I'm not going to do that again. That's what I suspect. But one devotee kept asking Prabhupada, "But what if you want to come back?" He said, you would not want to come back. But what if you want to come back? You wouldn't want. What if you want to come back? He said, then what can Krishna do? So if you really want to come back, which you won't, because Krishna says you won't. But if you really want to, then what can Krishna do? He allows you to come back. You have free will. But you won't want to. Satyendra, I'll make sure if we both there that you don't come back again.
Can you make sure that you take me too?
That would be a better deal, right, Satyendra?
I know, I'm looking for a better deal here.
Because once you get there, I think you've burnt your fingers enough.
I think after that, I won't be that stupid.
Exactly. Take me too, Pyari. 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to bargain, but I don't know if I could. First of all, I got to get there myself.
You keep me in front, Prabhu. So you keep me in front. So if you reach there somehow, I will be pushed in front.
Anyway, if I ever get back to the spiritual world and I remember any of this, I will certainly put put in a good word for all of these devotees in our congregation. So ultimately, I mean, Krishna can liberate all of us. It's nothing. You know, it's just all of us devotees. He can take us all back. It's nothing. And sometimes it's Krishna or Lord Chaitanya comes at the time of death to remind us, because, you know, it's really hard to be fully Krishna conscious all the time, or even part of the time. So hopefully we get some special mercy. I know devotees have, you know, at the time of death, like Jiva's friend, who was also a Prabhupada disciple. She passed away, and she very much worshipped Tulsi. She took care of Tulsi so nicely. They had this in Canada, Vancouver. They had huge Tulsi plants, like big bushes in Canada, and she took care of them. She's very much into Tulsi. So when she was in the hospital, wherever she was, there was a TV. So on the TV, they taped a picture of Rinda Devi or Tulsi. I'm not sure if it was Tulsi or Rinda that they put the picture. Jiva, do you know? Rinda. It was a picture of Rinda Devi. And when she was dying, she said, do you see her? Rinda Devi's here, Rinda Devi's here. And then the devotees just looked at the picture and they said, yes, yes. He said, no, not the picture. She's here. And then she left. You know, so, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. But we hope for the best. And we do what we can now, try our best. And the results are up to Krishna. They're not up to us. So we just have to try. And the worst that'll happen is, which is pretty bad, I think, because I don't want to come back here, but we have to come back here again. But we begin where we left off. We don't lose anything, nothing at all spiritually. And then we start where we left off. And we can see that, I see that in this movement. Some devotees come and they start where they left off. It's like obvious this person did so much in a previous life. They're like so advanced. So easy to follow all these principles and do everything. And some people, it's a big struggle. So we're beginning where we left off. But hopefully we get some special mercy. It's Kali Yuga. We need a good lawyer. to what do you call it? To represent us or have a case.
We do. We have the holy name as our lawyer, right?
Well, if we have the holy name, then we just, if we're chanting, then we definitely just go back, no problem.
It's like our spiritual master.
Yeah.
What did you say?
She said it's like our spiritual master. He'll say something on our behalf. I also see it as Krishna wants, like anything, to please Prabhupada, because Prabhupada only wants to please Krishna. And if we want to please Prabhupada, if we try, then Prabhupada's going to say something for us. He wants us to go back to Godhead. So Krishna may let us go back to Godhead just because his desire for us to go back to Godhead is so strong, and Krishna's desire to please Prabhupada is so strong. So why not? It can happen. So let's hope for the best. Anyway, let's offer our obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord.
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यः एव च पतितापावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः. Thank you, Hare Krishna. This is the bestest class you give to my mom and every devotee.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Tulsi.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class.